Once upon a time, in the far north, there was a kingdom where a king and a queen ruled. They had 3 daughters. The youngest one was incredibly beautiful and kind. One day, the princess was walking in the woods when suddenly, out of the bush, a giant polar bear appeared. The young girl was startled. "Don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. I have come here to ask you to marry me." The bear put out its paw and gave the princess a necklace of unseen beauty. "I will be back in 3 days. If you agree, I will take you away with me." Then the polar bear disappeared in the woods. When the princess came back to the palace, she related what had happened to her in the woods. The king and the queen were saddened. They were unwilling to be parted from their daughter so soon. When the appointed day came, the king, determined not to give his daughter to the bear, ordered his guardsmen to line up in front of the palace. The polar bear, enraged by the presence of the army, appeared. Some of the guardsmen shot all their arrows, but frightened, threw their bows down and ran away. Then the young princess went up to the bear. The bear lowered its back so that the princess could sit on it, and they both disappeared in the woods. They walked a long way. After midnight, they arrived at a fairy tale castle. There, all of a sudden, the polar bear turned into a handsome young man. "I am King Valamont. A wicked witch turned me into a bear. Only after midnight can I become human again, but you mustn't see me." 3 years passed. The princess bore Valamont 3 children, but as soon as the baby was born, he rushed away with it to a place no one knew. After that, each time he would come back tired. One night, the princess decided to see her husband's face in the daylight. She took a candle and went closer to him. At that moment, a drop of wax from the candle fell on Valamont's face. "What have you done?" he asked her. "Now we have to be parted forever." Having realized what she had done, the princess threw herself upon his back and clutched tightly at his fur. In that way, he rushed off outside, and the princess didn't lose hold of him. The bear ran through forests and over mountains. He crossed icy rivers. The princess was so tired that she couldn't hold on him anymore. Exhausted, she slipped down from his back. When she came to herself again, there were no signs of Valamont. Frozen to the bones, she started walking with no direction. Soon she saw the lights of a small cottage. The princess knocked on the door. "Good evening," she said to an old woman who was sitting by the hearth, and 3 children were playing near her. "Haven't you seen King Valamont, the polar bear, passing by?" "He passed by this morning, but he was running so fast that it's unlikely for you to catch him up," the woman replied. Then the eldest child, who was playing with a pair of gold scissors, said, "Granny, let us give the scissors to this woman as a gift. Just look at how torn her clothes are." And the moment the child clicked with the scissors, the princess's clothes changed into different ones, new and warm. "Let us give her the magic tablecloth as well," the other girl suggested, and laying in front of herself a cloth. "Little cloth, please feed us." In a flash, delicious dishes piled on the tablecloth. Smiling, the old woman invited the princess in. The next morning, the princess was on her way again. She walked a long way. At dusk, she reached a small hut. Tired, she knocked on the door. A mean-looking woman answered. Everything in the house was old and mean. The woman put a few white stones in a pot filled with water, which was boiling on the fire. "I boiled the stones, and the children think they're potatoes, and while they're waiting for the stones to boil, they fall asleep. Forgive me for having nothing to treat you to." Then the princess took out a tablecloth and gave the children food to eat. Next, she clicked with the scissors and dressed them in new clothes. The next morning, the host of the house gave her special climbing claws, without which she wouldn't have been able to cross the high, icy mountains. On the 3rd day, the princess saw a castle in the distance. It belonged to the witch who had cast a spell on Valamont. In the outskirts, the people were preparing the streets for the forthcoming feast, Velamon's wedding with the witch. The princess stopped at the gates of the palace and took out the magic scissors and the magic tablecloth. She treated all the passerby to some delicious food. Having noticed the miracle, the witch desired to possess the scissors and the tablecloth at once. "Sell them to me," the witch said. "I will pay you well." "They are not for sale," the princess replied. "But I can give them to you in exchange of 3 nights spent with King Valamont." The witch agreed. Right on the first night, the witch gave the prince a sleeping pill, and he fell into a deep sleep. The princess was repenting and asking him for forgiveness, but in vain. He could hear nothing, nor did he realize it was her speaking to him. The same thing happened the second night, but one of the servants heard the princess's entreaties and took pity on her. In the morning, he told King Valamont what had happened. The third night, he secretly threw the sleeping pill away and pretended to have been asleep. The very moment the princess started talking again about her endless love for him, a miracle happened. Her deep, sincere love broke the spell. King Valamont turned into a human being again, hugged the princess, and gave her a promise never to be parted from each other again. On their way back, they took with them the 3 girls, who were in reality their own children, and the old woman who was no one else but Valamont's mother. Then they lived in Valamont's castle happily. But what happened to the witch? Some people say she turned into a raven and is still flying alone over the ice-capped mountains, searching for the prince. But I do not believe that.